Welcome to another edition of Language of the Gods, where we discuss issues and topics relating to metaphysics, astrology, and astrotheology. Here we delve into the dark recesses of hidden knowledge in an attempt to draw out the truth which has been suppressed and distorted by a sinister hidden hand over centuries of control and manipulation, as they work together towards their ultimate objective of global governance under an all-encompassing technological control grid.
The human being is not just a two-dimensional biological processing unit of focal consciousness and carnal desires. We are multidimensional with infinite potential when connected to higher spiritual realms. For thousands of years, systems of control have used division as a mechanism not only to divide universal holistic spirituality away from human consciousness, but also to implant false, perverted beliefs designed to disempower the individual and the community. While the majority of the citizens fight and argue amongst themselves, disunited, the controlling powers expand their sphere of influence over their flock, taking full advantage of ancient universal wisdom. A cohesed, harmonious society is a powerful antidote to any form of tyrannical, manipulative governance. Fully aware of this, division is promoted and perpetuated across all aspects of society. In our ancient past, during the golden ages of higher expanded awareness, a holistic approach to universal energy united humanity, a combined symphony of frequencies which emanated from the cosmos, poured a balanced tapestry of energies over our biological decoding vessels. Over time, man's religions singled out particular energetic frequencies, unique characteristics associated with individual planets. Neglecting the balanced approach, monotheistic religions evolved, focusing on the frequencies generated by one or two prominent planets. Through this selective approach, a whole system of indoctrination and dogma entered the community, engulfing each particular religious cult together with its unique methods of worship. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. The original translation in Hebrew talk about the Elohim creating the heavens and the earth. El is the word for a single God in Hebrew. Elohim is a plural, suggesting more than one. It should read, "In the beginning, the gods created the heaven and the earth." Therefore, there is more than one God. There is a pantheon of gods, just like in ancient Egypt, Greece, and the early Roman Empire. Could the gods be the planets in our solar system, and the energy resonating from them be the necessary information which we need as building blocks to create and influence a balanced reality. Another explanation for the term gods could be a reference to an external influence of sophisticated beings which at one time possibly participated in our creation and development. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." Genesis 1:26. This translation only makes sense when the plural of God is used. The gods said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." This backs up the holistic planetary approach of all the planets contributing to our likeness. If it was an external influence which manipulated indigenous DNA to produce the likeness described, we can only conclude that this is a feasible and plausible possibility. According to the work of Jordan Maxwell, who presents a good argument concerning the original translation, he points out that the ancient writings in Phoenician Canaanite, early Hebrew, are misinterpreted, and that we know more about translating ancient manuscripts today than King James did with his best scholars all those years ago. "And the earth was without form and void." According to Maxwell and many other theological scholars, it should read, "And the earth became a waste and a desolation." If the earth became a waste and a desolation, this implies it was not in that condition at a previous time. Possibly in a prior period, the planet was teeming with various forms of life in abundance, certainly in a better condition. After God creates Adam and Eve, the Bible talks about replenishing the earth's human population. The word replenish means to do it all over again, implying the earth was populated once before. "And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth." If we apply the cyclical version of history based on the great 26,000-year cycle as opposed to Darwin's lineal version, Genesis 1 begins to make a little more sense. Is it possible that previous human civilizations have dwelled here on the earth for thousands, even millions of years? A cycle of life which appears to be much older than mainstream historians have us believe. The subconscious is said to make up over 90% of the human brain capacity. It is habitual, emotional, and delicately sophisticated. Before man's religions perverted spirituality, I would suggest that humanity had an effective connection to the scope of consciousness offered by nature, a balanced awareness between focal sub and higher mind logos, harmoniously absorbing the energetic frequencies of all the planets and luminaries without judgment or bias. Maybe our ancestors understood the value of all the universal frequencies and took great care in handing down and preserving this holistic wisdom for future generations. All modern religions practice some form of connection to their supreme being. Prayer, meditation, chanting or singing of hymns, a practice which, I suggest, derived from a previous ancient time when enlightened, balanced, holistic human beings would join together to energize the collective energy fields around them. Whatever they focused on as a group would influence the electromagnetic plasmatic soup surrounding them, thus tweaking their reality to suit their needs. They did not give away their power by looking outside themselves to an imaginary saviour in the clouds, created by modern religions as an external God who is expected to iron out all their selfish requirements. They knew their power came from within, from a balanced consciousness, which could be magnified within a united collective. The whole concept of prayer, meditation, chanting and hymn singing is a repetitive technique stimulating many senses, helping suggestions germinate successfully within the garden of the subconscious. Growing these seeds is a matter of nurturing those suggestions which develop and grow into new beliefs. Any system of control desiring to dominate the masses must disguise the human potential within a united collective, offering false or fragmented gods and masochistic beliefs of hope which render them powerless, subordinate and economical slaves to their enlightened masters who keep ancient universal wisdom closely guarded amongst themselves and their limited entourage. The further we go back in history, the more gods we see being revered. Our ancestors didn't worship one god, they worshipped many. A polytheistic pantheon of gods representing the planets, the cosmos and planetary energies. Only in relatively recent history do we see monotheism evolve, possibly to make life easier for the manipulators to steer us from the potential wisdom which can be derived out of the multifaceted universe. According to Genesis 1, God created the world in 7 days. This whole concept is interesting in a variety of ways, but mainly because the number 7 appears yet again. It can be found all over creation and the natural world. We have 7 days of the week, 7 planets in the ancient zodiac, 7 notes in an octave, 7 colours of the rainbow, 7 chakras in the human body, and 7 wonders in the ancient world. If we take the planets as the common denominator, in the order they appear in our weekly cycle, we begin to see a pattern form. The order of creation, according to Genesis 1:2, is in the same order as the planetary days of the week. Day 1 of creation, God said, "Let there be light." The sun on Sunday. Day 2, God separated the waters beneath from the waters above. The moon is the planet of internal emotion, typically associated with water. Day 3, God creates dry land. The land surface on Mars is one of the driest places in our solar system. Day 4, God creates the stars and the heavens. Mercury is the planet of communication, connecting divine consciousness to the cosmos. Day 5, God creates all creatures that live in the water, all the birds and flying insects, all made with the ability to reproduce. Jupiter is the planet of abundance and expansion. Day 6, God makes Adam and Eve. Venus, the planet of love and liking. God made man to his likeness and to his liking. Venus is the ruling planet of Libra, where the sun gives way to the evening. Day 7, God rested. Saturn. Saturday is the Jewish Sabbath. The order in which the planets are represented here is an ancient one. The days of the week in English reflect that order, but this is not unique. It can be found all over the world, in a variety of languages and cultures, people who supposedly evolved independently of each other, express the same 7 planets in the same order, the origins of which must have come from way back in our ancient past, from an ancestral heritage who possessed a comprehensive understanding of the planets and the zodiac, the language of the gods. Today's major monotheistic religions have a knowledgeable inner core with various levels of outer rings supporting the faithful believers. The inner core acts in a similar way to secret societies, holding the keys to ancient esoteric knowledge which has been passed down from the old mystery schools of Sumer, Babylon and Egypt, wisdom which derived from the days of polytheism and universal understanding. The main monotheistic religions did not begin this way. They evolved from a pantheon of gods, which represented the energetic forces of the planets. In the early days of star worship, each culture would practice its own form of star worship, performing different rituals and adopting different names and personifications. As time unfolded, the gods worshipped by conquering cultures would be seen as superior to the gods of the vanquished. It was therefore natural to worship the gods of the victorious. Today's main religions have singled out specific planets, which are at the center of their ideology and worship. Judaism with Saturn, Christianity with Jupiter, Muslims with Venus, and Buddhism with Mercury. The most obvious reference to this is the day each religion chooses as their preferred holy day. Judaism on Saturday, Christianity on Sunday and Thursday, and Muslims on Friday. In many cultures, Monday has been adopted as the first day of the week, as the moon is the first celestial body from the earth. If we assign that as our benchmark to our planetary order, some interesting correlations begin to unfold. Saturn is commonly depicted as a black cube, also as a 6-pointed star, which in turn makes the number 6 an associate. The most important holy day of the week for the Jewish faith is Saturday, the Sabbath, Saturn's day. During the age of Aries and Pharaonic Egypt, the tribes to the northeast between the Nile and the Euphrates were known as Canaanites. A city-state system evolved around 1500 BC in Egypt, Mesopotamia and Canaan. The story of the beginning of the Israelites start around this time. Each city-state used the Canaanite people as economical slaves. A man named Moses appears to liberate these slaves from the exploits of the Egyptians. An exodus of 600,000 men and their families took place, leading them back to the land of Canaan, the Promised Land. They wandered through the desert for 40 years before finally settling in the hills of the West Bank. Here they grew from small villages into towns and cities, conquering the old cities of Canaan. They also built a temple in Jerusalem, the first temple, honoring their single deity, a monotheistic religion with the one God, Yahweh. They called themselves Israelites, God's chosen people. Unlike other religions at that time, who were worshipping many gods, the Israelites taught against polytheism. The first holy temple was sacked by Pharaoh Shoshek I around 930 BC, who carried away most of the treasures. It was stripped again around 700 BC by the Sennacherib king of Assyria. However, it was finally destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC. At this point, the upper classes of the Israelites, the priests, prophets and scribes, were marched off to Babylon as captives. Here they organized themselves with their scrolls, to write the first 5 books of the Bible, known as the Torah. Without a city or a temple, they wrote their Bible to keep their faith and traditions alive. They could still worship, pray, perform rituals and keep the Sabbath, even while exiled in Babylon. When Babylon fell in 539 BC, the Israelites went back to Jerusalem to build a second holy temple, which was not as grand as the first, but allowed them to focus on their religious practices. When Alexander the Great took control of the city in 332 BC, the second temple narrowly escaped being destroyed. It wasn't until 198 BC when Antiochus the Great came along with the Ptolemaic army that a rebellion ensued. Antiochus wanted to Hellenize the Jews, converting them to Greek polytheism. The rebellion was quashed, but later under Antiochus IV, an official ban was placed on circumcision and the religious observance of the Sabbath. Furthermore, a statue of Zeus was erected within the second holy temple, and when a Greek official ordered a Jewish priest to perform a Hellenistic sacrifice on a pig, the priest killed the Greek officer and with his 5 sons fought off their Greek overlords to win their freedom. The Romans eventually arrived and took over Jerusalem. Their might was too much for most cities to resist. Around 20 BC, the second temple was renovated and extended by King Herod the Great, a client state king for the Roman Empire. Finally, during the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD, the Romans flattened the city, destroying the temple and much of the Jewish culture. In 132 to 135 AD, during the Bar Kokhba revolt against the Romans, the Jews wanted to rebuild the temple, but when the revolt failed, they were cast out and banished from the city into the surrounding villages and towns. In the 7th century, during the expansion of the Muslim Empire, a shrine was built on the site of the Jewish temple, the Dome of the Rock. It has stood in the same place for over 1,300 years. After World War I, the Zionists were given land in Palestine, their promised land. Many Jews settled there before, during and after World War II, with a huge number perishing throughout this turbulent period. After World War II, the overwhelming sympathy for the reported deaths of 6 million Jews, a recommendation was put forward by the United Nations to form the legitimate state of Israel. On the 14th of May 1948, this came into effect. However, it came under criticism as many felt that the borders of this new state were not clearly defined in the declaration. In the 6 Days' War of 1967, the Temple Mount and Old City of Jerusalem was captured from Jordan by the Israelis. In 1980, Israel unified East Jerusalem and the Temple Mount with the rest of the city against opposition from many parties, including the United Nations Security Council. The Zionists have a brave ambition to unite all the Jews together within the Promised Land, an area put aside for God's chosen people, from the Nile to the Euphrates. The flag of Israel reflects this ambition. The Star of David, the 6-pointed star of Saturn, is between 2 blue lions, which represent the Nile and the Euphrates. The first 5 books of the Old Testament, the Judean Torah, are purported to have been written by Moses, which is their version of the history of humanity, which according to their timeline began in the age of Taurus. Could this be the reason for the name Torah? Their legends mention 600,000 men escaping slavery in Egypt under the leadership of a man named Moses. This exodus happened in the time of Aries, ruled by Mars, Marses, A time of hope and liberation, a new beginning with a new set of rules, laws which Moses brought down from Mount Sinai as 10 commandments from God. And the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai, and the clouds covered it for 6 days. They wandered throughout the desert for 40 years, before settling in the hills of the Promised Land. The energy of the planet Mars is a proactive physical energy, one of movement, motivation and physical doing. They couldn't have chosen a better character to lead them to freedom. Israel has many archaeologists working to find evidence to support the ancient biblical events found in the Torah, events which would legitimize their claim to the Promised Land and a greater Israel. Unfortunately, the physical evidence uncovered to date does not support the entire biblical hypothesis. The findings lead towards a slow decline in the city-state system around the time the Exodus was supposed to have happened. As conditions deteriorated in Egypt, Canaan and Mesopotamia, many of the lower classes, the serfs, slaves and common Canaanites, moved out. They took the opportunity to move into the hills to form small communities. These communities grew and united together under common goals and values, creating the early Israelites. Contrary to what the Torah suggests, they were the result of a collapse in the Canaanite city-state structure, not the cause of it. With a desire to break away from their suppressed lives under the old polytheistic city-states and elites' rule, they had the opportunity to create a fresh, new ideology, cementing it under the worship of one God. The Bible called them a mixed multitude. A new version of history was put together, painting a romantic view of a people's struggle and liberation under the guidance and helping hand of God, a chosen people, selected for a chosen purpose and promised a chosen piece of land. During these early years, many people were still polytheistic, unwilling to give up the traditions of the past. As each generation emerged, coerced by their leaders, a slow transition took place to create the Jewish faith we see today, a faith which has singled out the energy of Saturn as their primary focus. The combinations of energetic frequencies emanating from Saturn are unique. Submerging oneself in these energies will result in a specific character trait. The energies and characteristics of Saturn are: command us to get to work and work hard, discipline and responsibility, limitations and restrictions, organizing one's time, governs time from birth to death, sense of tradition and conventionality, perseverance and withstanding the test of time, senior status brings authority, structure and order. It takes 29 years for Saturn to perform one full orbit around the Sun and return back to one's natal chart position. This may be the reason why, in Jewish tradition, one could not enter into public ministry until the age of 30. Saturn is the 6th planet from the Sun and the 2nd largest after Jupiter, a gaseous giant 9 times bigger than the Earth, comprising mainly of hydrogen and helium. It has 62 moons and a visible ring system made from ice particles. Together, Jupiter and Saturn account for 92% of the total planetary mass in our solar system. When one looks closely at the lives and habits of practicing Jews, we can identify many of Saturn's energetic characteristics, many being of an admirable quality. May be the reason why we see a disproportionate number of Jews in positions of importance and authority is because they align themselves with the characteristics and qualities of this planet. They are the people of Saturn. Being without a homeland for most of their existence, the Jews have had a sense of insecurity, forcing them to organize themselves well by working hard, being responsible and disciplined, while helping to keep their faith and traditions together. This has brought restrictions and limitations to many areas of their everyday lives. Their kosher food consumption and preparation requirements can be frustrating and restrictive unless you are habitually accustomed to it. They have a huge sense of tradition and must be applauded for preserving their heritage, which has withstood the test of time. They have great respect for their elders and are conventional within the boundaries of time. These are all Saturn's characteristics. A culture aligned with these energetic frequencies will inevitably reflect this in their reality. The number 6 is very important to the Jews, being the number associated with Saturn. It is found in many of their myths, writings and history. Saturn is represented as a 6-pointed star or a hexagon. The Six-Day War in the 1960s. Exodus, 600,000 men. Israel has 6 letters. Noah was 600 years old when the flood of the waters fell onto the earth. 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. Siege of Jerusalem in 1099. 60,000 people were massacred, 6,000 Jews. Exodus 5, and he took 600 chosen chariots. Exodus 6, and it shall come to pass on the 6th day that thou shalt prepare that which thou bring in. Exodus 7, 6 days shall thou labour and do all thy work. Exodus 8, if thou buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve. Exodus 9, and 6 years thou shalt sow thy land and gather in the increase thereof. Exodus 10, and the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. Some people have speculated that the war in the Middle East essentially comes from the desire of the powerful Zionist factions inside the Israeli government to expand their borders to the biblical boundaries of the Promised Land, and that ISIS is a private mercenary army helping to facilitate this outcome. The name Israel is a construct of Isis, Ra, and El. The Jewish Triad consists of Saturn, Sun, and Moon worship. The moon was favoured and worshipped by ancient Hebrews, Arabs, and many other cultures in our distant past. The Mesopotamians named their moon god Sin or Nana. This is where the name for Mount Sinai comes from. It is moon worship. The Jews who pray 3 times a day call their place of worship a synagogue. Agog means eagerly, expectantly, or merry mood. There are 7 deadly sins and 7 virtues, depending upon how an individual wishes to conduct themselves. These virtues and vices are derived from the 7 planetary energies, the good aspects versus the bad. Saturn's people, according to ancient planetary vices, if not careful and aware of their actions, can be prone to avarice, greed. Saturn rules over 2 signs of the zodiac, Aquarius and Capricorn. The mottos for these 2 signs are I know and I use. The Christians are people associated with Jupiter, the planet ruling Pisces throughout the 2150-year epoch of the 2 fish. The Pope sits on the throne of Peter. The religion focuses mainly on the energetic frequencies given off by this planet and the luminaries. aligning their whole belief system with the energetic characteristics of this enormous planetary body. Using the law of attraction, the Christians resonate with Jupiter, bringing forth and emphasizing its potential. Jupiter is the 5th planet from the Sun, the biggest planet in our solar system, 1/10 the diameter of the Sun and 11 times the diameter of the Earth, a gas giant comprising mainly of hydrogen and helium. Jupiter takes approximately 12 earthly years to perform a full orbit of the Sun. This means Jupiter will stay in each zodiac house for approximately 1 year before moving into the next. The planet has a red spot, a giant storm the size of the Earth, which was observed as far back as the 17th century. Jupiter is not alone. It is accompanied by 67 moons. The biggest, Ganymede, has a diameter greater than Mercury. One of its moons is called Europa, which mainly consists of an ice-covered liquid ocean. Jupiter's astrological characteristics are a reflection of its size and physical nature. It is the king of the gods, the planet of plenty. It is tolerant and expansive. Attributes include good luck, bounty, optimism and growth. It comes with morality, gratitude, hope and honour. Jupiter can guide you to a sense of purpose and high ideals. Some of its pathways towards fulfillment come through learning, travel, challenges and philosophy. The planet's energy does have a negative side due to its size, which can lead to blind optimism, excess and overindulgence. Jupiter was the chief deity of the Roman state religion, along with his wife Juno. Jupiter was also known as Jove, Lupiter, Lovis, Diaspita, and Zeus in Greek. When humanity entered the age of Pisces, Jupiter, the ruling planet, became the new focus of spiritual energy emanating from the cosmos. It would naturally dominate during this epoch of 2150 years. The Romans understood how this all worked, hence why Jupiter became their chief deity, offered by the ruling classes as the new state religion. Any form of grassroots spirituality, preaching the truth, the light and universal wisdom, would ultimately be targeted as a threat to the establishment, who sought to control all aspects of society. The early Christians were closely associated with Gnostics and pagans, and probably understood ancient universal teachings, holistic wisdom and its heritage. The state eventually took over the running of this New Age Christianity to control its potential by offering a perverted and diluted version of the truth, organizing a new religion, taming Jupiterian energies for their own benefit. Their new weapon was to influence the subconscious and to alter the beliefs in the minds of the masses, steering them on a new path, a path of obedience and control. The vice for Jupiter is gluttony. A recent study for the Journal of Religion and Health found that Christians are more likely to have a larger body mass index than atheists and other religious groups. Aligning one's community or nation with the expansive energy of Jupiter will in time manifest these traits in reality, contributing to the Christians' expansive domination around the world. Roman Catholicism has become the wealthiest institution on earth. The Christian faith expanded to nearly every nook and cranny on the planet, leaving no stone unturned. Sunday became the preferred holy day in the Christian week. 7 is their most highly regarded number. It symbolizes completeness and perfection, spiritually and physically. The number 7 appears over 700 times in the Bible and is the foundation of God's Word. Although Christians are associated with Jupiter They are also equally aligned with the Sun and the Moon in a triad, the Father, Son and Holy Spirit, choosing the day of the Sun to focus on their faith. Thursday, Jupiter's day, is not entirely neglected. Holy Thursday is one of the most important days on the calendar of the Catholic religion. During the Last Supper, Jesus offered himself as the sacrificial lamb. He bid farewell to his followers before prophesying of his betrayal. All around the world, bishops and priests celebrate what is known as the institution of the priesthood, Holy Thursday. A Mass is held where the bishop washes the feet of 12 priests. The feet are associated with the zodiac house of Pisces, and there are 12 priests, one for each house. This is a symbolic reconstruction of the moment when Christ washes the feet of the 12 apostles. The cross can also represent a 4-pointed star, the day of Jupiter. There is no greater example of Jupiter's expansive gluttony expressed in the physical realm than the Christian festival known as Thanksgiving, and it is no coincidence that this festival is celebrated on the 4th Thursday in November. Jupiter rules over 2 signs of the zodiac, Pisces and Sagittarius, with mottos of I believe and I seek. Muslims make up approximately 23% of the world's population. They follow the religion of Islam, based on a book called the Quran, which is considered to be the word of God, revealed by the Prophet Muhammad. Muslim is Arabic for one who submits to God. The planet chosen by this religion is Venus, the planet of love and liking. The number associated with Venus is 5, along with their holy day on Friday. They pray 5 times a day and adhere to the 5 pillars of Islam. On top of some mosques, you will see a crescent moon and a 5-pointed star. Venus is the 2nd planet from the Sun, with an orbit of 224 days. It is the brightest natural object in the night sky, after the Moon. It is made up of 92% carbon dioxide, with an atmospheric pressure 92 times greater than the Earth. It is the hottest planet in our solar system, with an average surface temperature of approximately 460 degrees centigrade. The astrological energetic characteristics of Venus are associated with love, liking, and the pleasures we take in life, our appreciation of the exquisite nature of things which make us happy, the pleasures we derive from our possessions, our luxuries, and all the good things which surround us. Venus also has a negative aspect or vice. This energy, if misused, can transpire as self-indulgence, self-centered, vain and superficial. The traditional vice for Venus is lust, which is understandable once you comprehend the characteristics of Venus. This could be one of the reasons why some Muslim women are required to wear the burqa, to reduce temptation in the males, keeping them away from lustful vices. Venus rules Taurus, I have, and Libra, I complement. One is a fixed earth sign and the other a cardinal air sign. Libra is associated with law and justice, a balance of right and wrong. Sharia law, a term which means the path or way, is a legal framework to regulate those who live within the Islamic system. It deals with all aspects of life. However, there are some harsh penalties. Today's propagated view of Muslims by Western powers is an attempt to demonize them for economic and political reasons, and the picture they portray is almost an inversion of Venus's planetary energies. Prior to Muhammad, much of the Arab world was still involved in polytheism or paganism, participating in the Arabian star family worship. The Assyrians considered Athtar, Venus, to be the supreme deity who suddenly appeared around 2500 BC. Assyria and Syria means the land of Venus. According to Dr. Rafat Amari, in his book Islam in Light of History, he writes, Venus stole the title of Allah from the moon, and both the moon and the sun became subjects to Allah, the brightest star. If you ask them, who created the heavens and the earth, and subjected the sun and the moon, they would surely say Allah. Then how are they deluded? The Muslim scholar and historian Al-Masaudi reveals that Venus was the star of choice, worshipped in Mecca, Tathrib and Yemen, which also hosts a Kaaba, similar to the one found in Mecca. The Kaaba in Yemen was built specifically for the worship of Venus. Allah became a great and high star, which descended every third part of the night to appear to his worshippers. In Islam in Light of History, Dr. Rafat Amari cites a source from Ali bin Bernan, known as the author of Halabi. Allah descends to the heaven of this world when it is the last part of the night. It is clear that, by the word Allah, they meant the morning star, which they saw in the third portion of each night. Islam in Light of History. In the book of Sahih Bukhari, the book containing the authorized hadith of Prophet Muhammad, we find a subtle but clear indication of the morning star Venus. O Lord, the Blessed, the Superior, comes every night down on the nearest heaven to us when the last third of the night remains. The worship of Venus suddenly appears around the early time of the Assyrian Empire. Modern theories concerning the birth of Venus are in tune with the work of Immanuel Velikovsky in his book Worlds in Collision. His hypothesis has been partially corroborated by recent scientific discoveries. It is now believed that around 2500 BC, Venus entered our solar system, pulled in by Jupiter's immense gravitational force, propelling it towards the position and orbit it occupies today. On its journey, Venus took on all the characteristics of a huge comet, with a distinct, bright tail trailing from both sides of its mass, like the horns of a bull. As it moved towards its new position, it is thought that it interacted with the Earth on 4 separate occasions. A 52-year cycle of unprecedented upheaval and catastrophe ensued in various parts of the Earth. During this time, it has been suspected that the Earth's gravitation turned over. The sun rose in the west and set in the east, and the North Pole flipped to become the South Pole. 4 times in this period, so they told me, the sun rose contrary to experience. Twice he came up where he now goes down, and twice went down where he now comes up. Yet Egypt at these times underwent no change, either in the produce of the river and the land, or in the matter of sickness and death. Herodotus, Book 2 of his Histories. I mean the change in the rising and setting of the sun, and the other heavenly bodies, how in those times they used to set in the quarter where they now rise, and used to rise where they now set. Plato the statesman. Due to its time as a comet, Venus has been associated with a beard, or one with hair. Venus barbata. Venus worshippers would grow their beards to symbolize the comet's tail. The Kaaba in Mecca houses a very important stone. It is a meteorite, which fell to earth at the time of Adam, possibly from Venus as it passed by. It was set into the wall of the Kaaba by Muhammad in 605 AD. The stone was believed to have been white, the same colour as Venus when it was first discovered, but went black over time when combined with the bad energy of humans touching it. Muslims pray 5 times a day, and the first is a pre-dawn prayer meeting known as the Fajr. Coincidentally, the time given for this prayer meeting coincides with Venus appearing on the horizon at Mecca in Saudi Arabia. Buddhism emerged from Hinduism. It is a non-theistic religion philosophy. In Sanskrit, the word Buddha refers to the planet Mercury, the planet of intellect and communication. This Buddha is not to be confused with Gautama Buddha, who was a sage, someone who has attained wisdom. The word Buddha with 2 Ds in this context means awakened one or enlightened one. Gautama Buddha was a man born into a wealthy family. His father was elected chief of the Shakya clan and expected Gautama to follow in his footsteps. When he was 29 years old, he left the comforts of the palace to pursue a journey of understanding, discovery and enlightenment. In Buddhism, there is no creator and no supreme God. The only way to salvation is through your own spiritual improvement. The Buddha teaches you to question everything, including the Buddha. Through Buddha's teachings, Dharma, he will show the way or path. It is up to the individual to decide their own route to nirvana. The Buddhist also believes in reincarnation, the cycle of birth, death and rebirth. Mercury is the smallest and closest planet to the Sun, with an 88-day orbit. The planet has virtually no atmosphere, creating an environment where the surface temperature fluctuates from -173 degrees centigrade during the night to 427 degrees during the day. Its surface is similar in appearance to our moon, having a large number of various sized craters scattered across it. Looking at Buddhism from an astrological perspective, we find correlations between Mercury, Wednesday and the number 3 throughout Buddhist traditions and practices. The number 3 is a common occurrence in Buddhism. The 3 precious jewels, Buddha, teacher, Dharma, teachings, Sangha, community. 3 poisons, ignorance, attachment, aversion. The 3 baskets of the Pali Canon. 3 aspects of the Eightfold Path, morality, meditation, and wisdom. At the Buddhist temple, when bowing, one makes 3 prostrations with 3 sticks of incense. When making a ceremonial procession around the temple or tomb, it is done 3 times. The astrological characteristics associated with Mercury, the planet known as the messenger to the gods, are as follows: communication, intellect, awareness, logic and reasoning, thinking, how we express our thoughts, to get answers on the physical and psychological level, dexterous and perceptive. Things happen fast with Mercury energy, prompting us to move from one thing to the next, to express ourselves in all kinds of ways. Buddhism is a religious philosophy. Through meditation and self-discipline, one can achieve enlightenment. The whole mechanism behind this participatory philosophy fits perfectly well within the characteristics of Mercurian energy. The meditation process facilitates a communicative balance between all levels of consciousness. In peaceful stillness, one can be in the space between thoughts, where all possibility exists. Buddha teaches that the unawakened mind falls into the trap of the three poisons, and through the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, mind training can be achieved, leading one towards a righteous path, eliminating suffering which is caused by the three poisons: greed, hatred and delusions. Buddhist monks or monks are instantly recognizable in their orange robes and shaved heads. One explanation for their appearance can be deduced from their role as moon watchers. Like all monks, they are responsible for observing the cycles of the moon. They shave their heads to symbolize the moon, and the orange robe is thought to represent the color of the sky during sunset, a time when the moon slowly becomes the dominant luminary in the sky. Unlike other religions, the Buddhists do not focus on an artificially created holy day of the week. Instead, they base their holy days on the four main phases of the moon: full moon, new moon, and half moons, harmonizing their spiritual connection to nature. Moon days in the Theravadan calendar of Thailand are called Wan Pra, monk days. All monks are expected to stay in the temple on these holy days. Mercury rules two signs of the zodiac, Gemini and Virgo. The energetic mottos for these two signs are I think and I examine, a perfect reflection of the philosophical approach of the Buddhist. Bangkok, the capital of Thailand, is at the heart of this Buddhist nation. The etymology of the name Bangkok is uncertain. Although Bang is Thai for a village situated on a stream, Kok could have derived from the old Hebrew word Kokhav, which means the planet Mercury. Hinduism is the main religion in India and many parts of South Asia, practiced by over 1 billion people. It is more of a way of life than a religion, a henotheistic philosophical way of life, belief in one God while accepting the existence of others. The motto for the Hindu is plain living and high thinking. It is another Mercurian-based belief system, the oldest practiced religion in the world, which forms the foundation of modern Buddhism. The main goal of a Hindu is to attain enlightenment, to understand the complete truth of life, to realize that one's soul is identical to the Supreme Soul, which is present in everything and everyone. There are many paths to enlightenment, and it is up to you as to the path you choose. You can be polytheistic, monotheistic, atheistic, or humanistic, but Brahma is the supreme creator God who can be seen in many forms. The Hindu equivalent of the Christian Triad is known as the Trimurti: Brahma the creator, Vishnu the preserver, and Shiva the destroyer. Just like in Buddhism, meditation is the primary route on the path to enlightenment. The additional art of yoga is used as a tool for discipline, health, and balancing the consciousness. The Hindus do not give their power away to an external man in the clouds. They know that the power of the universe and the Creator are both external and internal. They are a part of nature, and nature is part of them. They have no religious authority or governing body, no prophets and no holy book like the Torah or the Bible. Their roots have a close tie to the understandings and wisdom of the ancient world rather than the rigid monotheistic religions of the modern era. They have a more balanced approach to their conscious connection with universal energy. Time has not diluted or altered their fundamental reasoning behind their concept of spirituality. In 2001, a judgment was passed by the Andhra Pradesh High Court in India favouring astrology. Since this, advanced degree courses in Indian astrology are now available in some universities. However, the majority of the West's scientific community, a community selling man-made global warming and nuclear weapons, still consider it to be a pseudoscience. Vedic astrology is not only one of the main subjects of our traditional and classical knowledge, but this is the discipline which lets you know the events happening in human life and in the universe on a timescale. Prashant Bhushan. Hindu astrologists believe in the connection between the microcosm and the macrocosm, that we are all connected and all part of the whole. It is still an important and major part of the lives of many modern Hindus. Pantheism is a belief that the universe, from the smallest particle to the whole, is God. It is not a personified deity. It is oneness, composed of everything. We are all part of God and all God. This concept of life, the universe and all things dates back thousands of years and is the simplest of all philosophical and spiritual explanations. Although the term pantheism did not exist until the 17th century, many pre-monotheistic religions can be regarded as pantheistic. The ancient Hindu and Egyptian religions all had pantheistic elements about them, suggesting it may be the natural foundation from where human spirituality aligns itself. Pantheist tendencies appeared among the early Gnostic Christians. It also re-emerged from time to time all over the world in various new forms and pockets. The Roman Catholic Church regarded pantheism as heresy and has put many brilliant scholars and philosophers to death for this very reason, Giordano Bruno being one of them. The concept behind the triad, the three aspects of God acting as one, come from the three areas of consciousness, focal, sub and higher mind consciousness, which correspond to the sun, the moon and universal higher mind logos. This triad can also be represented as the cosmological father and mother, giving endless birth and rebirth to their son. The sun which appears every morning in Aries, the father, and disappears every evening between Virgo and Libra, the mother. Most religions have personified this simple process, worshipping the sun's journey across the sky from birth to death. The sun during the daytime rules the focal consciousness. This is why we are awake and alert during the day. The moon rules the night, the subconscious, hence why we fall asleep and try to connect with this part of our mind. Unfortunately, most people have no recollection of their sleep time and their journey into the subconscious. The sun rising is considered masculine. It is the sun coming out of the feminine waters of the underworld. The sun appears to come closer towards us, giving us a bright blue sky. The sun setting is when the sun falls back into the waters of the underworld, the subconscious. At this time, the sun is moving away from us, creating a reddish sky. This is the Doppler effect, hence why blue is synonymous with the male and red or pink synonymous with the female. The sacred secret, the grand arcanum, the magnus opus, the elixir of life, enlightenment, self-mastery, whatever you want to call it, knowledge concerning this has been handed down to us through the writings of our ancestors. Simple guidelines of how this aspect of the body works and how through self-control and self-discipline one can unlock the keys to enlightenment. Most religions have one major thing in common: the sexual discipline of its male followers and a doctrine of keeping the seed within. Self-control over sexual desires in Christianity. For it is God's will that you be sanctified. You must abstain from sexual immorality. Each of you must know how to control his own body in a holy and honourable manner, not with passion and lust like the Gentiles who do not know God. Thessalonians 4:3. The fruit of the Spirit is self-control. Galatians 5:22. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away, for it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body goes into hell. Matthew 5:30. Self-control in Judaism. Semen constitutes the strength of the body, its life, and the light of the eyes. Its emission to excess causes physical decay, debility, and diminished vitality. Thus Solomon in his wisdom says, "Do not give your strength to women." Proverbs 31:3. Whoever indulges in sexual dissipation becomes permanently aged. His strength fails, his eyes become dim, a foul odour proceeds from his mouth and armpits. The hair of his head, eyebrows and eyelashes drop out. The hair of his beard, armpits and legs grow abnormally. His teeth fall out, and besides these, he becomes subject to numerous other diseases. Medical authorities have stated that for each one who dies of other maladies, 1,000 are the victims of sexual excess. Maimonides, great medieval Jewish thinker. It is forbidden to discharge semen in vain. This is a graver sin than any other in the Torah. Whoever emits semen in vain deserves death, for it is said in Scripture, R. Johanan. Self-control in Islam. And those who guard their chastity, except for their wives, for then they are free from blame. But whoever seeks beyond that, then those are transgressors. Quran. Masturbation during the daytime of Ramadan breaks the fast, based on the hadith that a fasting Muslim gives up eating, drinking, and sexual desire for the sake of Allah. Since masturbation is a kind of sexual desire, a fasting Muslim must avoid it. Therefore, masturbation invalidates the fast, as does food, and as it is one of the sins that if someone does it, he or she will be violating the sanctity of this month. Self-control in Buddhism and Hinduism. To refrain from committing sexual misconduct. The third precept. Masturbation is the act of stimulating one's own sexual organs to the stage of orgasm. In the Kama Sutra, male masturbation is called seizing the lion. Some people during the Buddha's time believed that masturbation could have therapeutic effects on the mind and the body, although the Buddha disagreed. According to the Vinaya, it is an offence of some seriousness for monks or nuns to masturbate. Shravasti Dhammika, Guide to Buddhism. Celibacy is one of the foundations of Hinduism, and masturbation is one of the impediments to purity during the brahmacharya phase of the life. The word brahmacharya tends to take on a connotation of disciplining the use of and preserving divine energy, and is also understood broadly in yoga, which can be understood as being applicable and appropriate in different contexts. In more extreme terms, or in more specific terms, in relation to preserving and sublimating male sexual energy rather than losing it through ejaculation. The common theme running through all these religions and philosophical teachings requires self-control from the male, instructing him not to spill his sacred seed unnecessarily. What are they trying to tell us? And what is the main reason behind the barbaric practice of circumcision? In the Jewish tradition, a baby boy is required to be circumcised on the 8th day after his birth. This is so the child can experience one Sabbath without unwittingly participating in his contract with God. The physical expression of this contractual agreement with God is to have the foreskin of his penis cut off by a senior member of his peers. From an astrological perspective, we see the genitalia, the part of the body associated with Scorpio, I desire, being ceremoniously and intentionally mutilated, imposing Saturnian energetic frequencies of control, discipline, responsibility, limitation, and restriction. The drawing of blood is the fluid of life, contracting Saturnian dominion over the desires of recreational sex, promoting seed retention. Circumcision has become a habitual ritual not only for Jews but other Abrahamic-based religions, observed by Muslims and Christians alike. Here is my covenant that you are to observe between me and you and your descendants. Every male among you is to be circumcised. You are all to be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin. And this is to be the sign of a covenant between me and you, generation after generation. Every male among you is to be circumcised on the 8th day after his birth, including the servant born in your house or the one purchased from a foreigner who is not of your offspring. Genesis 17. Although this ritual was written by Saturn worshippers, it is also practiced by Jupiterians and Venus worshippers, simply because it is thought to promote cleanliness and seed retention. Chi, prana, ruha are all expressions of the creative vitality, the fluid life force breathing energy throughout the body. Most religious practices recommend celibacy among the male monks and priesthood. The reason being is that retaining the semen builds up the body's natural life energy, improving physical health, mental health, and spiritual awareness. Nearly all paths to enlightenment recommend this practice. Ancients believed the pineal gland or third eye could be activated with the help of meditation and various esoteric methods, including semen retention. An activated pineal gland stimulates the 6th and 7th senses, contributing towards enlightenment and harmony between all levels of consciousness. Semen is a complex mixture of chemicals. Vast amounts of physical and emotional energy are used in its production. When it is retained at full capacity, the excess energy is reabsorbed into the body, supporting other vital organs, improving overall health and vitality. Nature's cycles, especially lunar cycles, have always played an important role, interacting with our biological makeup. The human body, which is made up of 70% water, will be influenced just as much as the tides. Both men and women have a special time of the month where their natural sun-moon position, cemented within their physical cells, resonate with the frequencies of the transiting moon. Women have a menstrual cycle from ovulation to menstruation, averaging 28 days, synchronizing with the moon as it orbits the earth. The term menstruation comes from the Latin mensis, which means month. Very little ancient history has been written about this subject, due to most historians of the time being male. But it is believed that in ancient times most women living together in communities menstruated at the same time, around the new moon. What I suggest is that the women of Aboriginal Yurok households menstruated in synchrony, utilizing the light of the moon to regularize their menstrual cycles, and that the menstruating women of households use their shared periods of menstrual seclusion for the practice of spiritual discipline. American ethnologist. Today's modern living pulls women out of sync with nature. Artificial lighting and electromagnetic pollution contribute to this distortion and chemical imbalance. Instead of seeing the menstrual cycle as a connection with nature, most women see it as an inconvenience. The abundance of pornography in modern society is no accident. I would suggest it is encouraged by the controlling factions as a way to seduce and disempower its citizens away from peak health, heightened awareness and enlightenment. A population of vacant, empty vessels are more likely to look outside themselves for guidance, prone to consuming corporate products as a way to plug the holes in their unfulfilled lives, turning a society of wankers into obedient workers for the objectives of a few powerful groups and institutions. The chemical process which takes place in the male body due to sperm retention could be nature's way of ensuring the survival of the species during times of low population, a mechanism designed to heighten awareness with a deeper connection to all levels of consciousness, leading your biological self towards procreation, guiding you to where you need to be in order to find a suitable mating partner. It is therefore recommended by many religions for the individual to be encouraged in this area of self-control and self-discipline, steering himself away from temptation, even tying oneself to a mast like Ulysses in a desperate attempt to keep the seed within. There is nothing holy about these monotheistic religions. They are only part of the whole. To have a genuine holy religion, all planets must be equally represented as a balancing mechanism for a harmonious reality. The rainbow is not holy with half the colours missing. The octave will not strike a chord without all its notes. The universe is the energy behind our reality, and we as humans are a reflection of that energy. Why handicap ourselves by focusing on only a partial selection of universal frequencies? The further we go back in time to the source of our creation, the more we see a pantheon of energies being worshipped. Did our ancestors know something we have lost sight of and deviated from today? The ability to understand universal energies and their role in the physical world is not a simple concept. It is the accumulation of knowledge associated with an advanced culture, one with the ability to study the cosmos and its cycles. Is it possible that all those years ago our ancestors were taught by a sophisticated race, a race whose understanding and knowledge allowed them to harness this energy in ways we are unfamiliar with now? They do say in myths and legends that the gods once walked on the earth with man. Maybe the descendants of that race are still with us today, using their ancient knowledge to keep themselves in control, while perverting the truth from the rest of us as a way to divide and rule humanity.